What's happening, guys? Welcome to Let's Talk Comics. Today we are going to talk about Mutant X. I saw this issue when I was at my comic book shop today. It was in the dollar box, so I grabbed it. Figured it would give me a chance to talk about this book. For those of you who are not familiar with Mutant X, this right here on the cover, this is Alex Summers, aka Havoc, and this issue picks up directly after the very last issue of X Factor, in which Alex Summers, Havoc, is caught in this type of explosion that sends his essence, his soul, or whatever you want to call it, into the body of another dimension's Havoc. So he arrives in this other dimension and essentially is possessing that Havoc. He's replaced that Havoc's consciousness, and he exists in that world that's a world that's very different from the mainline Marvel Universe, where he's the leader of this team called the Six. They have a vastly different group of heroes there. Characters that look very familiar, have had different origins. They've had different experiences. You know, they're the same character name, same character alter ego, but they've went a different route than what we know in the mainline Marvel Universe. This book came out in 1998. It ran for 30 issues. It was the direct replacement to the X Factor book. It's not a book that is very much talked about anymore. I feel like it kind of is under the radar, not that it's a bad book or anything. It's just kind of, because it wasn't set in the regular X-Men universe, people kind of, didn't really want to get involved in it. They didn't really dig it or whatever. But I read it at the time, and I really enjoyed the creativity of it. I enjoyed the fact that because it was not in the mainline universe, that they were able to take more creative liberties. They were able to tell stories that were not as hamstrung by events that were going around them. So I dug it quite a bit. And you don't really hear anybody talk about it anymore, or you don't really see it on any lists. But I still think it was a very solid book. The very first issue here, this is a gatefold cover, and you kind of get a look at the team. They're known as the Six, and they are comprised of Storm, but in this reality, she's called Bloodstorm. She is still the mutant who can control the weather, but she was actually turned into a vampire by Dracula. So in mainline Marvel X-Men continuity, she encountered Dracula, but didn't get turned into a vampire. And here she did. Then here we have Warren Worthington III, the Angel, or Archangel, as we know him here. In this reality, he was turned, instead of being turned into Archangel by Apocalypse, he was turned into this character. He's got like bat wings. He can breathe fire, and his name is the Fallen. So experimented on by Apocalypse, but looks radically different than what we know him as. And then here we have Hank McCoy, the Beast. The difference here in this world is Hank McCoy experimented on himself. Instead of making himself blue, fuzzy, and maintaining his intelligence, he essentially turned himself into some sort of amphibian ape, or whatever you want to call it. He can breathe underwater. He still has like ape-like features. You see he's hairy here. But one of the downsides is when he experimented on himself, his intelligence radically diminished itself. So he does not have the brains or the intellect to change himself back and he is no longer one of the most smartest people in the Marvel Universe. Instead, he's just this, I think his name is Brute. I think that's what his name is. But he experimented on himself and is no longer the beast that we know. Iceman here, still Bobby Drake. However, whereas in the main universe, he was abducted by Loki, and Loki experimented on his powers and made his powers run out of control, so he had to wear this belt that could, not cause him to freeze everybody. Here, he never got that belt. So he's permanently stuck in his ice form, and anyone who comes into contact with him will automatically freeze themselves solid. So basically the same character, but his powers are just completely out of control because Asgardian Loki intervened. And then Havoc is the same old Havoc. And then we have Maddie Summers right here. She is the Goblin Queen. And she is Alex's wife in this reality, and they have a child together. So in the first issue, Alex wakes up in this world. There's a big battle that he got blasted in, and that is kind of part. This reality's Alex got blasted in this battle at the same time the main Marvel's Alex Summers got caught in that explosion, which caused him to shift to this body. And we see him waking up there, and they are basically like the X-Men of this world. They're a very popular, heroic team of mutants or whatever. But it is a pretty fun exploration of a different reality, one that's similar to ours, but still has its big differences. And I think something like this would do very well right now with the popularity of the multiverse and alternate timelines and everything like that. I really think it would be, wouldn't be very much of a stretch to bring something like this back or to introduce something like this. But Mutant X only ran for 30-something issues. None of them are keys or anything like that, but just a very solid, under-the-radar X-Men book. Howard Mackey was the writer on it. He was writing X Factor and then canceled X Factor and went straight into Mutant X. Howard Mackey also wrote a ton of Ghost Rider issues in the 90s, so that's probably where you know his name from if you don't recognize it from this. But if you see any Mutant X issues out there, check them out, pick them up. They'll probably be in your dollar box. It's a really cool exploration of a Marvel universe that's similar to ours, but is also vastly different. So that is Mutant X, book that I think flies under the radar and is often forgot about. But until next time, I will talk to you guys later. Have a good day. Bye-bye.